everyone, welcome to Watch It, Paint It. Today we're back with Masmorra, Dungeons of Arcadia. We're going to be painting a hero. We're going to be painting Jay. So we'll start with, this is the Leather Brown primer by the Army Painter, colour primer. Sprayed in that, so he's primed and a lot of his skin's now done. Like, that's the base coat of his skin. Then it was white for his eyes, important with the chibis. Let's focus a little bit on the eyes. So start with those, get them nice and bright and white. Then we're going to be using Royal Purple. This is by Vella. And that's for all of his sort of cloth clothing. So his pants, his elbow pads, his vest under his armour. Probably a vest. And then he's also got like his, what do you call those? Again, as always, braces. Yeah, braces. He's got his sort of cloth purple arm warmers on as well, so get both of those nice and purple. Then after that, any excuse, it's just any excuse I can get to use livery green in the artwork. This looks like a bit of a bright yellow, bright green, so livery green's out. My favourite colour of paint, nice and bright. That's for his belt and his sword handle. Next, we'll be using Machinegun Metal. That's the darker metal by Army Painter from the Zombicide range, and that's going to be to paint on all of his silvers. So he's got metal around his elbow pads. Why is he wearing elbow pads? Is he going to do some skating later? A bit gnarly. And he's got his crotch plate and his bottom plate on as well. And then after that, I'll be switching to the Claymore blade, which is the lighter silver. And this will be to do is the majority of his armor, his chest plate. So I'm just making this one a brighter. It's more in focus. It's at higher up the model. A lot of light would be catching this, whereas the other pieces I feel like would be darker metal. They're a bit in the shade to begin with, so rather than just shading them down totally, let's just make them darker to begin with. And his sword was also Claymore blade. I'm going to use Desert Yellow by Vella. That's like a yellowy brown, and that's to do his leather boots. They look quite pale in the artwork, so I'm just trying to mimic that here. Give them the same pale colour, yellow leather, basically. I'm using my detail brush. That bit's quite fiddling. You've now painted most of the models, so be careful there. I'm going to use bright gold. He's got some sort of giant medallion clock thing around his, looks like around his chest, but it's dangling onto his legs. I think the chain's a bit too long for him. He needs it higher up, but then you won't be able to see it behind his arm. He's also got these two screws in his shoulder pads, one in each shoulder pad. Going to do those in gold. Going to also do the hilt and pommel of his sword in gold too. All using the detail brush there, a bit fiddly. And then there's also just his belt buckle as well. After that, we're going to use Charred Brown, and that's going to be to do the leather straps to his elbow pads and his eyebrows. Also, this is all with the detail brush, but I'm also going to do some of the detail work around his sword, around his face, his hairline sort of thing with the detail brush. Once I'm happy enough with that, I will switch out to a much bigger brush, otherwise this will take forever. But yeah, just basically tracing the outline of his hair, then switching to the regiment brush to fill in the rest of his afro. Nice charred brown, applying it nice and watered down, and because it's got leather brown underneath, this is going to take really well, really easy. That does not take very long at all. After that, we're going to be shading it, and we're going to be onto the washers. Going to start with the Survivor shader, the black shader by Army Painter. I'm going to give him a nice outline to his eyes, so very generously letting that seep into his eye sockets, also across his mouth as well, making his lips a bit more defined. Then anywhere there's some metal, I'm also going to be applying that to that to make it look a little bit tarnished, but also getting those cracks, those details on his armor. It will just make it stand out quite nicely. Then my hobby holder arrived, so you can see how long ago I started filming this. This is with my prototype hobby holder back when I first got it. Just trying it out here and carrying on with my shading. So I'm going to use the deep shader, that's the dark brown shader. And this is for basically the rest of the model, everything else that was left, except the purple. Don't do the purple. So that's his skin and the charred brown and his boots as well. So do all of those three. His hair will be in this as well. I don't know why I'm avoiding it at the moment. I just think I'm trying to do it methodically, so I know which bits I've done, even though it's completely clear which you've done, because as soon as this is applied, it's so much darker. But yeah, making sure that's going in all the recesses in his afro. And then the last shade I'm going to use is the toxic shader. That's why I said don't do the purple one. This is the purple shader by the Army Painter. It's in the Zombicide set, and I'm just going to do all those purple parts. So those bracers, his elbows, and his pants as well, or trousers if you're in the UK like myself. Then we're on to highlighting. We're going to start with Charred Brown. I'm just going to paint back in his hair basically, and this is going to take quite a bit of time, dipping it in the paint periodically and then basically dotting it on every little, what do you call it, bobble on his afro, like each little ball. I'm not sure, I'm not a hair specialist, so I'm not really sure what you call that, but you can see, you could dry brush this perhaps, but I thought they were big enough that it wouldn't take that much time and it's going to be that much more accurate just to dot in a piece of Charred Brown in each one. Then I'm going to be using Dirt Splatter by the Army Painter. That's the semi-dark brown. It's not very dark, but it's darker than Leather Brown. And that's going to be to highlight up the hair a step further. And I'm going to be using first edge highlighting on his eyebrows and his sideburns, just because it's so close to his face. Then I'm going to switch to dry brushing. I'm going to be doing this fairly lightly, just scraping this along his afro and just catching all the edges of those balls and really brighten up his hair. Livery greens back out, starting with an easy one, and just painting back in that base coat, basically where the shade had caught in, I didn't want it to. That's that done. That's the belt and the handle of his sword done. Then white primers out to just touch back in his eyes where that Survivor shader had run from the sort of sockets onto his eyeballs. That's quite a quick and easy bit. And then blacks out just to dot in two pupils, just a couple of seconds work there. Slightly lazy-eyed there, but I will fix that off camera. That's not too bad. So I did it on camera. I just move it slightly off camera for you so it looks a bit better at the end. And these are my models. I do play games with them, so I would like, if I can fix it, to fix things like that. Next is Claymore Blade to highlight up his armor and all those other silver bits. And I'm just going to be painting back on all the flat surfaces, basically trying to leave the paint in those cracks, in those recesses, in those details, and maybe around it a little bit just to add a little bit of sort of blending, but just highlighting this back up to the base color. This is the second to last Masmorra, I think. I think I've just got Sasha, is it? Something like that, the one who's holding this coin, I believe it is. I think it's just her to do, and then I'm done with Masmorra. That's pretty exciting. Royal Purples next by Vella, just to highlight back up those purples. So I'm just catching all the bits sort of forward facing here. There's folds on those braces on his arms, so they're very, very easy to sort of edge highlight. I highlight up each fold, and then just catching a bit around those screws and a bit on his pants as well. Going to mix in some white, make it about 50-50, just to brighten that up, and adding really, really thin strokes now on top of all those areas I just brought back to the base colour. Sort of a longer line along his thigh, and any of the folds that are sticking out. That's going to make it look really, really nice and detailed. Plague Brown, I think I just forgot which base colour I did. As you can see, I'm now using my new hobby holder, so months and months have passed. So I just forgot which colour it was, so I just highlighted up those boots with Plague Brown. Bright golds out again, just to highlight in all those gold bits, so those two screws on his shoulders, his pommel, his hilt, and that clock that's under him that you can barely see at all. So I didn't add too much highlight to that or spend too much time getting the details. I honestly didn't even notice it was there as I was highlighting up until I was painstakingly looking around for some gold to do. Leather Brown is going to be the colour. Army Painter's Leather Brown, not Vallejo's. It's quite a bit lighter, and that's just to paint in the base colour again for his skin. So I'm just going along and painting all the raised parts, just bringing the colour back where the shade had settled where I didn't want it to. So painting in all his fingers, his elbows, each of his muscles on his forearms and his biceps, and then his face. Quite a lot of time spent on his face, getting his nose highlighted. He's got a little bit of skin above his nose where he's like squinting. And then you have a tea break. Make sure while you're painting all this, you're having plenty of tea breaks. And then we'll carry on mixing in some Boney spikes with that Leather Brown, about 50-50, just getting a lighter brown. And then we're going to paint in the edges of all those previous places that we just put back to the highlight. So it's, especially on his sort of knuckles and the center of each part of his muscle on both of his arms. And on his face, I'm going to go for his ears, his nose, that little bit of scrunchy skin above his nose, his lips I'm going to try and catch as well, and then a little bit on his forehead and his cheeks as well, just a little dash to make it look realistic. My glasses being in the frame constantly now, I didn't realise how often I look around the edge of the camera. Apologies for that. Mournfang Brown by Citadel, and as normal with all my Arcadia Quest, Masmorra, Inferno, all of these guys, I am painting the base Mournfang Brown to begin with, and then I'm going to be applying Agril Unearthed, the Citadel's texture paint, which is going to apply very, very thickly on top of that Mournfang Brown, and that's going to leave to dry for a few hours, and it's going to crack and look all arid and deserty, and it's just a really, really quick way of getting quite a nice looking base. Just started it a long time ago now on Arcadia Quest, and I'm just following through. I'm always doing that, and this is the paint range, the model range, I guess, where I'm doing this technique, so you'll keep seeing that throughout all my paintings of the Arcadia Quest universe models. And that's it, 1 hour 36 minutes. That did not take a lot of time. I think that Army Painter colour primer leather brown at the beginning helped me jump forwards. I mean, that's his skin tone just done. That's what, a third, a quarter of the model, something like that, so big help there. So advise that if you've got colour primers, do that, save yourself some time. This is the second to last Masmorra other than the Kickstarters. Kickstarters could last forever. Let us know in the comments below what you thought. Did you enjoy this? Was this a nice model? Would you like to see some more Masmorra? It doesn't get a lot of love. Thank you very much for watching.